Hey, this is a quick introduction to how to use Adobe Premiere to edit an interview. Adobe Premiere has been through some recent changes. There's a few things different that kind of surprised me when I opened it up again this year. And I'm kind of thrilled with the new changes they have going on. So when we open up, there's always this splash screen that introduces to us some recent projects we may have going on. There's now some tutorials that are visible in here. It's just laid out a little bit differently. So I'm going to choose New Project. And when I open up a new project, it wants to create a project name and a location. These are the two most important things to start off with. What's it called and where are you going to save it? Now, the title is really important. It should be explanatory. It should make you know what it is when you open it. And I'm just going to call this Sports Med Demo. And I'm going to put this in a folder made for this called Demo Edit. Now, if I don't want that in there, I can choose location. And I can navigate to where I want this to be. I'm using my passport, my external hard drive for this, and there's a folder called Demo Edit. There it is, okay. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in that folder. So select folder. That just tells us what it's going to be called and where it'll be saved so you can find it again. So there's that. And you can also import at this point. So once you've got the location and the name figured out, the next thing you're going to want to do is import some content. And we can import to all these things. Frankly, I'm not too familiar with this part yet, so I'm going to do it the way I've always done it, which is go ahead and create the project. And it should now get busy creating a project. I think it is. There we go. Now what's here is if you've used Premiere before, very familiar, very traditional. We have the project panel over here. Now, each of these panels has other panels attached to it, but the one we're reading right now is the project panel. This is where we're going to store and import our content, our usable pieces. Now, it's important to note that the Premiere project file is just a reference to all these pieces we're going to add in there, so you cannot delete those pieces once you have them in. So let me just start with that, I guess, and I have a couple of clips I'm going to drag in here, right there, and drop them into place. Now, once I've done that, that's one way of doing things. You can also file and import. I like the visual of just dragging and dropping, so I can import this way and select a folder and a file. You can right-click in here and choose Import, and I'm pretty sure there's an Import button down here somewhere as well. So lots of ways to get your content. I like to folderize my stuff, and they call folders bins in Premiere. So I'm going to call this footage. Now, if you don't have a lot of stuff, it's not that big of a deal, but as your projects get bigger, the practice and discipline of organizing is essential. So there's my content, and next I need a sequence. Now, a sequence is a place where you're going to edit a bunch of content together. And if I just click and drag and drop, it's going to make a sequence exactly the same settings as my footage. So I've got that dropped in there. I'm going to go ahead and rename my sequence, because what it did is it took on the name of the file I dragged in there to make the sequence from. So I'm going to rename this, and I'm just going to call this 01 interview. And I use the numbers to sort of organize things. I'm going to take this out of my footage folder, and you can make a footage for your sequences if you want to. So that's this. Now let's talk about how to edit actual content. I'm going to take this clip out. Its job was to make a sequence for me. And if I double click on one of these clips, it's going to show up in my source monitor. The source monitor is where you can do some pre-editing. So if I've got this piece, it tells me it's 2 minutes, 15 seconds. I don't want the whole thing. I want just a little bit today. So if I push the space bar.
And what did you just take care of in there?
Well, we did a multiple procedure.
Let me just clip here. And I'm going to roll a bit further. Later there's a
past that point so you don't damage the joint.
So in here.
That's really painful. So we usually just tape it.
So taping is the question.
Say, for example, you fall and you
find the part where the taping shows up.
I see that in athletics. What's the point of taping?
So he's about to answer the question. So I'm going to click here to get mark in, or press the I key on the keyboard.
Taping is mostly just to stabilize an injury. So say for example, you fall and you land with your hand like this. That's really painful. So we usually just tape it so it doesn't go far past that point. So
I'm going to clip it there. And now I can drag it right into my timeline. Now, I could cut this up into pieces, which I want to do actually. So I'm going to take some pieces. So I take out some gaps. There's a gap right there, and he's sort of pausing. And now it's in the timeline, it shows up.
Mostly just to stabilize an injury. So say for example, you fall and you land.
Now another way of editing is if I go ahead and just use the razor tool, which the keyboard shortcut is C on the keyboard, and then click on there, and it wants to snap. If this magnet right here is blue, it wants to snap right to my time bar. So now I can also use the selection tool to trim that.
And you land.
So I've got a gap there in his speaking. So I'm just going to trim it right to here and put this together. And I want to make sure it makes sense.
For example, you fall,
make sure
land with your hand like this. That's really painful. So we usually just tape it so it doesn't.
Now, also it's a good idea to try to dial in the time. Now, this is by the way, at the bottom, there's this zoom bar, and that allows me to zoom in or out on my content. So as I roll this through, I can take out the gaps. Now, taking out gaps is a really good idea because as you roll through, you're going to find that taking out the gaps where they pause for a moment to catch their breath is going to make your piece more timely and quicker to watch. So you want to take out those gaps as much as possible. But here's the problem. We've got these little jump cuts, and that's pretty weird. So in order to prevent that, you can go find some footage like this piece here, and what I might do is just drag the whole piece in there. I'm just going to trim it a little bit. And I'm going to do an out point and the in point. I'm going to drop this over here like this, and I'm just going to cover up both of those cuts. So now you don't even know that there's a cut in there because we've got B-roll covering. So that's how that works. When you're done, go ahead and create a screenshot that shows your 3 cuts and your B-roll in place, and take the screenshot and turn that in. Later we'll learn how to export these, but this is a great start for us. There you go.